Mrs. Wrenford, your estate is being used for a wedding.
Whose wedding?
Your husband's.
Who is the bride?
Isa Marvell.
Headquarters, ma'am?
No, Ravensville. By midnight, he loses the bride, the merger, and the company.
Mrs. Wrenford, Ravensmere estate is being used for a wedding. Celeste Wrenford stopped beside the glass doors of the private terminal. Her driver was waiting outside. Her luggage had already been loaded. She had landed from Singapore 11 minutes earlier, still carrying the exhaustion of a 12-day negotiation that would reshape medical networks across 3 continents. But the voice on the phone made the whole terminal disappear. Celeste asked, "Whose wedding?" The estate manager swallowed so loudly she heard it. "Your husband's." For 1 second, Celeste said nothing. Ronan Ashbourne. Her husband. The man who had kissed her forehead before she flew to Singapore. The man who had told her Ravensmere felt empty without her. The man who was now standing under a wedding arch with another woman on Celeste's family lawn. But Ronan was still her husband. Legally, publicly, completely. Which meant the ceremony at Ravensmere was not a marriage yet. It was a lie dressed in flowers. "Who is the bride?" Celeste asked. "Isla Marquette." That name changed everything. Isla was not just a mistress. She was the daughter of Benedict Marquette, founder of Marquette Crest Fund, the same private fund that had tried 3 times to buy Wrenford Global's medical technology division for less than half its real value. Celeste's eyes moved to the black car waiting beyond the glass. "Send me the gate approvals, vendor contracts, guest list, security logs, and whatever document Ronan used to authorize access." "Yes, Mrs. Wrenford. And lock the North Archive." "It is already locked." "Lock it again." She ended the call. Her assistant, pale and silent, held out a tablet. A video was already circulating in private society chats. Ronan stood beneath white roses at Ravensmere Estate, smiling like a man with nothing to hide. Isla stood beside him in a wedding gown that glittered under the gray English sky. Behind them, engraved into a white floral arch, were the words, "A New Beginning." Celeste watched the clip once, only once. Then she turned the screen down. "Callum," she said into her encrypted line. Her chief legal officer answered immediately. "I know." "Bring the title file, original certification, digital ownership chain, notary, and witnesses." A pause. "You think he'll challenge the estate publicly?" Celeste looked at the frozen image of Ronan smiling on her lawn. "No, I think he is counting on me being too humiliated to question the first lie." Her driver opened the car door. "Headquarters, ma'am?" Celeste stepped inside. "No, Ravensmere." As the car pulled away, another message arrived. A photograph. Ronan laughing beside Malcolm Greer, a Wrenford board member. Benedict Marquette stood near them, calm and elegant, as if he were not attending a ceremony but inspecting an acquisition. Celeste zoomed in. Board members, investors, press, the Marquette family. This was not just betrayal, it was a stage, and Ronan had invited the audience himself. Celeste slid the tablet away. "By midnight," she said quietly, "Ronan Ashbourne will lose the bride, the merger, and the company he thought he had already stolen." But first, she had to walk into her own house as an uninvited guest. Ravensmere Estate had been transformed into a wedding fantasy. White orchids climbed the stone entrance. Silk ribbons moved in the wind. Crystal chandeliers hung from temporary frames beneath the old cedars. On the south lawn, 200 guests sat facing a floral altar near the lake where Celeste's father had once taught her how to sail. The gate guard stepped toward her car with a tablet. "Name, please?" Celeste lowered the window. The guard looked at her, then at the screen. "This entrance is for family and principal guests only. Vendors and late arrivals are being directed to the east service lane." Celeste looked past him at her own gates. I usually enter my own house through the front door. Before the guard could answer, a wedding planner hurried over in cream silk and a headset. Mrs. Wrenford, she said carefully, Mr. Ashbourne has asked that any disturbance be handled away from the ceremony space. Celeste opened the car door. For my dignity? She asked. The planner blinked. Celeste stepped onto the gravel. Step aside. The woman did. Not because she agreed, because Celeste Wrenford sounded like consequences. The first guests saw her near the fountain. Then the second row turned. A photographer lowered his camera, recognized her, and raised it again. By the time Celeste reached the edge of the south lawn, the wife had arrived at the wedding, her husband's wedding, or what Ronan wanted the world to call one. Ronan saw her last. He had been laughing with Benedict Marquette, one hand holding champagne, face relaxed with the confidence of a man who believed the scene belonged to him. Then his eyes found hers. The smile stayed on his face, but the blood left it. Isla Marquette turned slowly. She wore a gown that looked poured from moonlight, a diamond comb in her hair, and the expression of a woman who had already practiced pity in the mirror. "Oh," Isla said loudly enough for the front rows to hear. "Someone should have told me the former wife was coming." A murmur moved across the lawn. Former. Celeste looked at Isla with the calm attention of someone reading a contract before finding the trap clause. Former is a legal word, Isla. Did Ronan show you a final court order, or only a ring? Isla's smile flickered. Ronan stepped in quickly. The marriage has been over for months. The final documents are pending because Celeste refuses to sign what everyone already knows is true. Celeste looked at the altar, then at the cameras, then back at him. "Then this is not a wedding," she said. "It is a performance with flowers." Several guests shifted. Isla recovered quickly. "Ronan told me you were powerful," she said. "He forgot to mention you were still pretending to be his wife." "Pretending?" Celeste asked. "Some women inherit houses," Isla said, lifting her chin. "Others are chosen to build homes in them." That one worked, not because it wounded Celeste deeply, because it revealed what Isla believed, that Ravensmere was not a home, but a prize. Ronan raised his voice slightly. "Celeste has been under immense pressure. We have all tried to support her, but she cannot accept that this marriage ended long ago." "Ended?" Celeste asked. "Yes," Isla said, with dignity. "Until now." Celeste turned toward the guests. "Before anyone removes me from the lawn, perhaps the guests should know whose name is on the deed." Ronan's expression changed for less than a second, but Celeste saw it. Fear. Isla laughed. "This is embarrassing. Ronan showed me the authorization." "Did he?" Celeste asked. At the stone arch, Callum Sayer entered with 2 legal associates behind him. He carried a sealed archival folder. Ronan turned. "Callum, this is a private family matter." "No," Celeste said. "It became a legal matter when you put my house on an invitation." Near the terrace doors, Tessa Whitmer stood holding Celeste's tablet against her chest. She did not look shocked to see Celeste. She looked afraid Celeste had arrived too early. Callum placed the folder in Celeste's hand. Celeste opened it and turned the first page toward the front row. Ravensmere Estate is held under the Wrenford Preservation Trust. Sole residential authority belongs to Celeste Elian Wrenford. No spousal transfer, no marital conveyance, no event authorization signed by me. The lawn went silent. Isla's cheeks flushed beneath the veil. Then she stepped forward, snatched the paper, and tore it in half. A gasp moved through the guests. Then she tore it again. White pieces fell onto the grass like ruined petals. Celeste looked down, then back up. "You can tear paper, Isla. You cannot tear ownership." Callum opened the second folder, a notarized copy, stamped, sealed, witnessed. A photographer captured the moment perfectly. The bride in diamonds, the wife in pale silk, the torn deed at their feet, the authenticated title in Celeste's hand. Ronan's champagne flute trembled. Only slightly, but enough. Celeste leaned close enough for only him to hear. "You made a mistake using my house." His lips barely moved. "You have no idea what you are interrupting." Celeste looked at Benedict, then at Malcolm Greer, then at the board members seated among wedding guests. "No," she said. "I think I am beginning to." She walked away before Ronan could decide whether to follow. That unsettled him more than tears would have. He had prepared for a scene. He had not prepared for strategy. Inside the Ravensmere library, Celeste placed a call to corporate treasury. "This is Celeste Wrenford. Authenticate priority black." The officer on the other end shifted instantly into protocol. "Ready." Celeste gave the authentication phrase, thumbprint, and rotating security code. "Confirmed, Mrs. Wrenford." Through the window, Ronan was speaking sharply to Benedict. Isla stood near the altar, furious beneath her veil. Celeste said, "Freeze every discretionary account under Ronan Ashbourne's executive authority." "All executive discretionary accounts?" "All. Including corporate cards, event guarantees, travel reserves, vendor escrow, and temporary payment authorizations?" Celeste watched a waiter carry champagne past the window. "Including the wedding vendors?" the officer asked carefully. Celeste's voice stayed calm. "Especially the wedding vendors." Within minutes, the ceremony began to collapse in whispers. A florist refreshed her payment portal. A catering manager stopped the opening of vintage champagne. The string quartet finished a song and did not begin another. Near the bar, a server looked at his supervisor and mouthed, "Declined?" Ronan turned toward the library windows. Celeste was watching him. For the first time that day, he looked less like a groom and more like a man hearing locks click shut. But the first account Celeste froze was not the one that mattered most. Callum placed a tablet on the desk. "The estate authorization came from Ronan's executive office," he said, "but the payment guarantee was attached to a Wrenford Global Hospitality account." "Corporate funds?" Celeste asked. "Routed as investor relations. A staged wedding paid as an investor event. Partially. The larger problem is the authority memo." Celeste turned. "Signed by whom?" Callum's silence answered first. Then he turned the tablet. A document appeared. Temporary use authorization and executive hospitality release. At the bottom was Celeste's digital signature. Her name. Her authentication marker. Her approval. For the use of Ravensmere estate. For Ronan Ashbourne's private ceremony. Celeste stared at it. She had not signed it. She had been in Singapore when it was approved. "When?" she asked. "Tuesday, 2:17 in the morning, London time." "That was 10:17 in Singapore?" "Yes." "I was on stage at the Med-Axis Summit." "Yes." "Live streamed?" "Yes." Celeste rested one hand on the desk. The betrayal had just changed shape. Ronan had not only used her house, he had used her name. "Pull every document carrying my digital signature from the last 14 days, Celeste said. Callum's face tightened. "I already did." He swiped. A second document appeared, then a third, then a fourth. Emergency voting proxy, temporary executive delegation, preliminary board consent, merger negotiation authorization. Then one that made Celeste stop breathing for half a second. Marital dissolution acknowledgement. Her name, her digital signature, her supposed consent that the marriage had ended privately months ago. Celeste looked up slowly. "He forged the end of my marriage before staging the beginning of his next one." Callum said nothing. There was nothing gentle enough to say. Celeste looked back at the screen. "Who receives the merger authority?" a private acquisition vehicle called Astor Vale Partners. I don't know Astor Vale. No one does, not directly. Callum opened a corporate chart, 3 holding companies, a Cayman registration, a Luxembourg bridge entity, a Delaware special purpose vehicle called Aurelian Bridge Capital. At the end, beneath the clean language of beneficial interest, was Marquette Crest Fund. Benedict Marquette. Celeste looked back through the window. Benedict stood beside the altar, calm in the chaos, watching the ruin of the ceremony as if it were still going according to plan. Callum said, "If the emergency proxy is accepted, Ronan can vote in your place for a limited period." Celeste kept reading. "If that proxy is accepted, Ronan does not just vote in my place," she said. "He takes the voice my father left inside the company to protect me." Outside, rain began tapping against the glass. Guests lifted programs over their heads. The bride glared toward the house. The groom stared at the wife he had tried to humiliate. And Celeste understood. The ceremony was not the betrayal. It was the commercial for the lie. The real crime had her signature on it. By sunset, the Ravensmere scandal had reached every society account in London. By dinner, financial journalists had begun asking why Wrenford board members had attended. By 9 o'clock, Ronan made his first public move. He stood outside the estate gates beside Isla, who had changed from her wedding gown into a white coat and tragedy. "My primary concern is Celeste's well-being," Ronan told the cameras. "She has been under extreme professional and personal pressure. This transition has been painful for everyone." Isla lowered her eyes. "I only hope she gets the help she needs." The clip spread instantly. Ronan did not deny the ceremony. He renamed the reaction. Inside Ravensmere, Celeste watched the clip once, then sent it to Callum with one line: "Find where the instability narrative begins." The answer arrived at 9:43 p.m. A sealed board memo had been sent to 3 directors and outside governance counsel. Subject: Emergency Continuity Review. Attached was a concern summary, not a diagnosis. That would have been easy to attack. Instead, it used softer words: recent emotional volatility, excessive executive control, paranoia regarding merger discussions, unresolved grief response, potential incapacity risk during strategic transaction. At the bottom was Malcolm Greer's name. Celeste read the memo in her private study. Tessa Whitmere, her chief of staff, stood near the doorway, holding 3 folders against her chest. "Malcolm circulated it to governance," Tessa said. "I tried to stop it." Celeste looked at her. "Did you?" Tessa blinked. "I called his office. That is not stopping it. That is creating a record that you objected." Tessa's fingers tightened around the folders. Celeste returned to the memo. There were details in it no board member should have known. Her mother's death anniversary, her canceled fertility consultation, her 2-week medical leave after the miscarriage she and Ronan had told almost no one about. Celeste did not look up. "Tessa." "Yes?" "Who gave Malcolm my medical leave record?" "I don't know." Celeste lifted her eyes. Tessa's hands were trembling, tiny movements. But Celeste had built a global company by noticing tiny things. "Then find out," Celeste said. Tessa nodded too quickly. "I will." When Tessa left, Callum entered with an authentication report. "She's lying." Celeste did not ask who. Callum placed the report on the desk. "The forged documents were created using your internal approval route: calendar verification, travel confirmation, personal token bridge, secondary witness clearance." "Who had the recovery protocol?" "Tessa." The name hurt less than it should have. That was the worst part. Some betrayals are shocks. Others are confirmations the heart resisted until the evidence became cruel. Celeste leaned back. A ceremony paid as investor hospitality, a stolen signature, a false dissolution document, a proxy that could give Ronan her vote, a board memo designed to question her mind. A merger that would send Wrenford's medical technology division to Benedict Marquette's fund for $900 million, when it was worth nearly twice that. Ronan did not need a new wife. He needed Celeste's vote. Then Isla gave the press the one weapon Celeste could not attack without looking cruel. At 10:12 p.m., Isla posted a photograph, her hand resting on her stomach, Ronan's hand over hers. The caption read, "Some blessings survive cruelty." Within minutes, the headline changed. Billionaire CEO crashes husband's wedding as bride reveals pregnancy. Celeste stared at the photograph. Then Callum placed another document in front of her. Pregnancy confirmation. Dr. Helena Vey. 4 weeks. Private clinic. Celeste looked at the date, then at the payment note attached beneath it. Larkwell Advisory, a consulting account linked through Aurelian Bridge Capital. She did not react, but when she spoke, her voice was colder. Find the doctor. The emergency board session was scheduled for 8 the next morning. Ronan called it a wellness review. Benedict called it transaction protection. Malcolm called it governance. Celeste called it a coup with stationery. Reporters crowded the Wrenford Global entrance. Celeste walked through the front doors in a charcoal suit, no sunglasses, no visible distress. A journalist shouted, "Mrs. Wrenford, did you try to stop your husband's wedding?" Celeste paused. "No, I stopped unauthorized use of corporate funds." Another shouted, "Are you seeking treatment?" Celeste looked directly at the cameras. "For fraud? I have counsel for that." Then she entered the building. In the boardroom, Ronan was already seated. Of course he was, not at the head of the table, to Celeste's right, close enough to look supportive, not bold enough to look hungry. Benedict Marquette joined by video from Monaco. Malcolm Greer sat near Governance Council, avoiding the windows, the screen, and Celeste's eyes. Celeste took the head seat. No one told her not to. That meant they were not ready yet. Ronan spoke first. "Celeste, before we begin, I want you to know this is not punitive." "Then it will be brief." His eyes cooled. "This is exactly what concerns us. You are treating care as hostility." "I am treating fraud as fraud." Ronan pushed a document toward Governance Council. Celeste acknowledged the end of the marriage months ago. Her refusal to accept it publicly is part of the concern. Celeste looked at the page. Marital dissolution acknowledgement. Her digital signature. Same false authentication route. Same London login. Same day she had been on stage in Singapore. She looked at the board. "He did not just forge my vote," she said. "He forged my grief into consent." Malcolm opened a folder, but his hands were less steady now. "The board has received preliminary concerns regarding your capacity to lead during this transaction window." "From whom?" Celeste asked. "Multiple sources." "Name them." "That may not be appropriate." Celeste placed another document on the table. "Then let's begin with something appropriate." "Who authorized the emergency voting proxy?" Ronan answered instantly. "You did." "No. The document carries your verified digital signature." Celeste pushed another page forward. "At 10:17 a.m., Singapore time, when the proxy was executed, I was on stage at the MedAxis Summit, live-streamed, with biometric entry logs placing my physical token in a secured safe." Callum distributed the exhibits. Celeste continued. "The login came from London. It used my approval route, my travel metadata, and a cloned witness sequence." Governance Council sat up. Benedict's image remained still, but his eyes moved. Celeste looked at Malcolm. "So I ask again, who authorized the proxy?" Silence. Then Malcolm said, "These are serious allegations." "They are timestamps." Ronan leaned forward. "You are trying to derail the merger." "No, I am trying to determine why my signature is on a document I did not sign, authorizing my husband to vote away a division his bride's father is positioned to buy." The The room went cold. One director whispered, "Benedict?" Benedict smiled faintly from the screen. "Mrs. Wrenford is under emotional strain. It would be irresponsible to entertain conspiracy." Celeste looked at him. "Then you will not mind disclosing Astor Vale's beneficial ownership?" His smile thinned. Ronan stood. "This has gone far enough." Celeste did not rise. "No, it has only reached the part where you begin interrupting." Ronan looked around the table. "Look at this. Paranoia, hostility, a total inability to separate personal betrayal from corporate duty." Celeste turned to him. "You held a ceremony on my lawn while using my signature on a dissolution document and a merger proxy." He lowered his voice, but not enough. "And you came back from Singapore ready to burn down everything your father built because another woman is giving me the family you never would." The room froze. For the first time that morning, Celeste's expression changed, not into tears, into stillness so complete it felt like impact. Then she said, "Thank you." Ronan frowned. "For what?" "For reminding everyone this was never about my well-being." She closed the folder. "This board will not vote today." Malcolm stiffened. "You cannot unilaterally—" "I can under Section 14.7 of the Controlling Shareholder Protection Agreement. When documents carrying my authorization are credibly disputed and related, party interest has not been disclosed." Governance Council turned sharply to Malcolm. Celeste stood. "The proxy is suspended. The merger is frozen pending forensic review. Ronan's executive discretion remains restricted. Every director in this room will preserve communications or explain deletions under oath." She looked at Ronan last. "You wanted me emotional. I regret disappointing you." Then she left. Through the glass wall, she saw Ronan turn on Malcolm with the fury of a man whose puppet had missed its cue. But Celeste still did not know how deep the inside betrayal went. Tessa broke at 11:36 that night, not under shouting, under silence. Celeste summoned her to Ravensmere's morning room, not the grand study. Pale green walls, rain at the windows, a silver tea service untouched between them. On the table, Celeste placed 3 objects: a login trail, the forged emergency proxy, a photograph from the ceremony lawn showing Tessa half hidden near the terrace doors, speaking to Ronan's private assistant before Celeste arrived. Tessa stared at the photo too long. Celeste said, "You were at Ravensmere before I arrived." Tessa whispered, "I came when I heard." "No, you came before the florist finished the south arch." Tessa's throat moved. Celeste did not raise her voice. "You gave Ronan my calendar." "No." "My travel schedule." "No." "My digital approval route." Tessa closed her eyes. "My private medical records." Tessa began to cry. Celeste watched the tears and felt nothing simple. Tessa had booked funeral flights, canceled dinners, guarded private grief, stood outside hospital rooms, knew which anniversaries left Celeste silent, and she had given that map to Ronan. "You did not give him passwords, Tessa," Celeste said. "You gave him my life." Tessa covered her mouth. "I didn't know it would go this far." "That is what people say after selling matches to arsonists." Tessa shook her head. "My mother's treatment was denied. The trial cost more than I could pay. Benedict's foundation offered help. Quietly. Then Ronan said there were compliance issues with your approvals. He said you were too stressed. He said he only needed temporary access while you were in Singapore." "And the ceremony?" "He said investors needed to see he had moved on, that the board needed to understand you no longer had personal influence over him." Celeste almost laughed. Ronan had turned treason into branding. "Who cloned the root?" "I gave them the recovery protocol, not the token. I thought legal would still verify final approval." "Who is them?" Tessa hesitated. Celeste let the silence lengthen. Finally, Tessa whispered, "Elias Vorn." Callum, standing behind Celeste, looked up sharply. After Tessa was escorted out, he explained. Elias Vorn handled digital acquisitions for 3 distressed hospital chains before Marquette bought them. Minority control shifted through emergency governance provisions in all 3. A pattern, Celeste said. Yes. Benedict hired a specialist. Yes. What about Isla? Callum opened another folder. Dr. Helena Vey confirmed the pregnancy 4 weeks ago. No matching lab entry, no blood work, no ultrasound archive. The invoice was paid through Larkwell Advisory. Celeste read the page carefully. Paper pregnancy, she said. Enough to feed headlines. Not enough to survive discovery. Callum watched her carefully. Do you want to expose it now? Celeste looked through the window at the abandoned wedding arch, still standing in the rain. Isla had used the pregnancy as a shield. Ronan had used it as a weapon. No, Celeste said. I do not want her lie to die in a clinic. I want it to die where Ronan planned to crown her. And then Callum found the document that turned the fraud into something darker. His phone lit up. He read the message. His face changed. What? Celeste asked. The insurance archive returned the old and revised policy documents. She turned. Ronan changed your key person insurance beneficiary structure 3 weeks ago. That is ugly. Callum did not answer. She saw there was more. Tell me. If you were declared incapacitated before transaction close, he would assume temporary executive control under the succession clause. Celeste's face hardened. And if I died? Callum handed her the file. In the event of death or permanent incapacity before completion of the Astor Vale transaction, Ronan receives transitional authority. The company receives insurance proceeds. Astor Vale receives price protection. Outside, the white roses trembled in the wind. A stolen proxy, a false dissolution document, a fake pregnancy file, a false instability memo, a succession clause, a husband telling the world his wife was unwell. Celeste lowered the paper. This was not a divorce plan, she said. It was a succession plan with flowers on top. The final proof came from Ronan himself. 2 days after the ceremony collapsed, he met Malcolm Greer in a private dining room at the Halcyon Club. Dark paneling, no windows, no phones allowed. Ronan forgot one thing. Frightened men keep receipts. Malcolm's assistant sent the recording anonymously to Celeste at 2:14 a.m. The subject line said, "For when he denies knowing." Celeste opened it alone in the Ravensmere study. The audio began with glasses touching. Then Malcolm's voice. "You promised the board would not be exposed." Ronan laughed softly. "The board will be grateful when Celeste is out and the transaction clears." And the ceremony? The ceremony sells the story. Poor Ronan, building a new family while his unstable wife storms the lawn. The dissolution paper makes it look finished. Isla gives them sympathy. The child gives them moral cover. The company comes after. Celeste did not move. Malcolm said, "And if Celeste fights?" Ronan answered without hesitation. "She always fights. That is why the incapacity route exists." A pause. Then Ronan again. "Besides, people believe what they already suspect. Brilliant women are always one bad day away from being called mad." Celeste stopped the recording. Her hands were cold, not shaking. Cold. Ronan had not simply stopped loving her. He had studied the world's prejudice against women like her and weaponized it. She saved the file in 3 encrypted locations. At 7 the next morning, Ronan sent white lilies. The card read, "I never wanted war." Celeste photographed the card and added it to the evidence file. Then she replied with one sentence. "Then you should not have invaded." Ronan called immediately. She let it ring twice before answering. "Celeste," he said, "we need to stop this. You needed to stop this before you forged my signature. You understand pieces, not the room, not Benedict. Not what investors will believe when they think you are the risk. You always confuse belief with truth. Truth is irrelevant if no one trusts the person saying it. Celeste looked at her father's portrait. I heard the halcyon recording. The line went silent. When Ronan spoke again, the velvet was gone. You should be careful. No, Celeste said. You should have been. She ended the call. That evening, Ronan refused to cancel the Wrenford Global Investor Gala. Canceling would look weak. Benedict wanted to reassure markets. Isla wanted the cameras back on her terms. Malcolm wanted to survive by staying silent, and Celeste wanted something simpler. A lie built for an audience should die in front of one. The gala began at 8. Ronan would announce the merger at 9. Celeste arrived at 8:47. Aurelian Hall glittered with glass, steel, suspended balconies, and quiet money. Ministers, hospital executives, foundation chairs, private equity partners, board members, and journalists filled the atrium. Behind the stage, a massive screen displayed the theme, the future of care. Ronan stood near the podium in a navy tuxedo, smiling like a man who had chosen not to bleed in public. Isla stood beside him in pale blue, one hand resting on her stomach. Benedict Marquette spoke to a sovereign wealth investor as if his daughter's scandal were a weather inconvenience. Malcolm Greer avoided Celeste's eyes. Callum walked at Celeste's side until they reached the edge of the press area. Then he stopped. This was her stage. Ronan approached first. Celeste, he said, I am relieved you came. You invited me. I invited the CEO of Wrenford Global. Then you must be disappointed to see her. His smile tightened. Isla stepped forward, eyes glossy for the cameras nearby. Please, she said, can we not do this tonight? For the baby, if not for me. Celeste looked at her hand, then at her face. Careful, Isla. With what? With borrowing sympathy from a lie. Interest compounds. Isla went still. Ronan lowered his voice. You will regret making her your enemy. Celeste looked at him. I did not make her anything. You did. The lights dimmed. Applause rose. Ronan climbed the stage and placed both hands on the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight is about continuity, responsibility, the future of medical care. Behind him, the screen showed hospitals, laboratories, smiling patients, clean corridors. All the beautiful images used to make asset transfers look holy. Ronan continued. In recent days, private challenges have become public distractions, but Wrenford Global is larger than any one person. Several guests looked toward Celeste. She did not move. That is why tonight, Ronan said, with the support of key stakeholders, we are proud to announce the next stage of our strategic partnership with Astor Vale Partners. The screen changed. Astor Vale Partners. 900 Miniatures Transformation Agreement. Applause began. Then Celeste walked forward. The applause thinned. Ronan saw her halfway down the aisle. His hand tightened on the podium. Celeste, he said into the microphone, smiling for the room. This is not the time. She climbed the steps and took the second microphone. You came here to announce a merger, she said. I came here to announce evidence. The room changed. A scandal had just become documentation. Ronan leaned toward the production manager. Cut her microphone. No one moved. Celeste looked at the screen. It flickered. The Astor Vale logo disappeared. A photograph appeared instead. Ravensmere, estate, the ceremony altar, the title record. Celeste said, Ravensmere estate is not Ronan Ashbourne's property, not marital property, and not available for unauthorized investor theater. It is held under the Wrenford Preservation Trust. Sole residential authority belongs to me. The certified deed appeared. Isla's face flushed. Ronan stepped closer. This is a personal grievance. Celeste did not look at him. The event was funded in part through misclassified corporate hospitality. Accounts under Ronan's executive authority. Those accounts are frozen pending forensic review. A murmur spread through the room. A hospital executive whispered, "Corporate funds?" Ronan said, "Administrative classification is not fraud." Celeste turned slightly. "Then you should have chosen a better administrator." The screen changed again. A legal timeline appeared. No final dissolution order. No civil registration. No completed divorce filing. Celeste said, "Ronan Ashbourne was not legally free to marry Isla Marquette. No final dissolution order existed. No civil registration had been filed. What happened at Ravensmere was not a marriage. It was a performance staged for cameras, investors, and this board." Isla's mouth parted. "Ronan?" He did not look at her. The screen changed. Marital dissolution acknowledgement. Celeste's digital signature. Singapore timestamp conflict. London login route. "This document claimed I had privately accepted the end of my marriage," Celeste said. "I had not. The same stolen signature route used to fake my consent as a wife was then used to steal my authority as CEO." Malcolm shifted in his seat. Celeste noticed. "So, the question became simple," she said. "Who needed my signature while I was gone?" The screen displayed emergency voting proxy. Ronan's name appeared beneath temporary voting authority. Ronan said, "That proxy was prepared under continuity protocol." "Continuity of what?" Celeste asked. "My leadership or your access?" He stopped. Celeste faced the room. "The proxy would have allowed Ronan Ashbourne to vote in my place during the Astor Vale transaction." Now the investors understood. The whispers became sharper. Benedict stepped forward from the side of the room. "Mrs. Wrenford is presenting internal complexity as conspiracy." Celeste looked at him. "I was hoping you would join us, Benedict." His face stilled. The screen changed again. A corporate chart appeared. Astor Vale Partners, Aurelian Bridge Capital, layered offshore entities, final beneficial interest, Marquette Crest Fund, Benedict Marquette. The room turned toward him. Benedict smiled, but only with his mouth. "That chart is misleading. Then regulators will enjoy the accurate version." A camera flashed. Isla whispered, "Father?" Benedict did not answer. That was the first time Isla looked afraid. Celeste continued. "Payments were also made through Larkwell Advisory to my chief of staff, Tessa Whitmer, in exchange for calendar access, approval route information, and internal records. Wire transfers appeared. Dates, amounts, consulting descriptions." Malcolm stood halfway. "This is not properly authenticated." Celeste looked at him. "Sit down, Malcolm." He froze. On the screen, an excerpt from Tessa's recorded statement appeared as text. Then another transfer appeared. Larkwell Advisory, Dr. Helena Vey, private clinic documentation fee. Isla stepped back before Celeste even spoke. Celeste's eyes moved to her. "Dr. Helena Vey produced a pregnancy confirmation with no matching lab entry, no blood work, and no ultrasound archive." The room erupted in whispers. Isla's hand left her stomach. A small movement. Every camera caught it. Ronan turned on her. "Isla," she whispered, "you said it was just paperwork." The microphone caught it. Just paperwork. The phrase traveled through the atrium like a match through dry paper. Celeste let the silence hold. Then she said, "The bride was not pregnant. She was sponsored." Isla's face crumpled. Not with innocence, with exposure. Benedict took one step away from his daughter. That step did more damage than any denial. Ronan's voice sharpened. "You are humiliating a young woman to punish me." Celeste looked at him. "No, I am proving you used her lie to question my stability." His face hardened. The screen changed again. Key person insurance amendment, succession clause, transaction price protection, Ronan's authorization. Celeste said, 3 weeks ago, Ronan altered key person insurance and succession provisions connected to Wrenford Global. If I were declared incapacitated before the transaction closed, he would assume temporary executive control. If I died or became permanently incapacitated, the Astor Vale structure received price protection. The silence was deeper this time. This was not gossip. This was danger. Ronan said, "That is a lie." Celeste faced him fully. This was not a divorce plan. It was a succession plan with flowers on top. He moved toward the control console. Callum stepped into his path, not touching him, only standing there. Security moved closer. Celeste touched the remote one final time. The Halcyon recording began. Ronan's voice filled the atrium. The ceremony sells the story. Poor Ronan, building a new family while his unstable wife storms the lawn. The dissolution paper makes it look finished. Isla gives them sympathy. The child gives them moral cover. The company comes after. Nobody moved. Malcolm closed his eyes. The recording continued. "And if Celeste fights?" Malcolm's voice asked. Ronan's recorded laugh answered. "She always fights. That is why the incapacity route exists." The final line landed cleanly. "Brilliant women are always one bad day away from being called mad." The recording stopped. Celeste did not look away from Ronan. The man on the stage had no charm left, only rage. She placed the remote on the podium. Effective. Immediately, Ronan Ashbourne is removed from all executive authority. His equity proceeds are frozen pending investigation. The merger is suspended, and every document carrying my stolen signature is now evidence. Ronan stared at her. "You think you won?" The microphone caught that too. Celeste looked at the audience, then back at him. "No, Ronan, I think you lost in public." Security approached. Ronan turned to Isla. She stepped away. He turned to Benedict. Benedict looked toward the exit. He turned to Malcolm. Malcolm sat down as if his legs had failed. In less than 5 minutes, Ronan Ashbourne lost the bride, the merger, the board, the money, the narrative, and the company he had mistaken for a dowry. But the final loss came when Celeste stepped off the stage. No one rushed to Ronan. Everyone parted for her. After the gala, the collapse moved quickly. Malcolm Greer resigned before midnight. It did not save him. Tessa Whitmer's cooperation agreement was accepted for review. It did not forgive her. Dr. Helena Vey's clinic records were seized the next morning. Benedict Marquette left through a private exit, already calling attorneys, already trying to become a witness to a structure that carried his fingerprints. Isla told a journalist, "I didn't know." Celeste heard it as she passed. She paused. Isla looked at her, eyes wet. "I swear I didn't know all of it." Celeste studied her. Without the gown, the veil, the stomach pose, and the cameras arranged in her favor, Isla looked smaller, but not innocent. "You knew enough to stand on my lawn," Celeste said. Then she walked away. Ronan called 17 times. Celeste answered the 18th. Not because she wanted him back, because she wanted to hear what defeat sounded like. "Celeste," he said, voice raw. "Please, you've made your point." "My point?" I was afraid. Benedict pushed. Malcolm pressured. "Isla, do not insult me with a confession shaped like a committee." Silence. Then he said softly, "I loved you once." That reached her. Not deeply enough to change anything, but enough to remind her that betrayal hurts because it wears a familiar face. Celeste looked at her bare hand. She had removed her wedding ring before stepping onto the stage, privately, no witness, no performance. "Maybe you did," she said, "but you loved access more." His breathing shook. "What happens to me now?" Celeste looked back at the stage where he had planned to announce her erasure. "That is no longer my department." She ended the call. Callum waited near the aisle, far enough not to intrude, close enough not to leave her alone in the wreckage. I care for you, Callum said, more than my role allows. If my presence complicates the investigation, I'll step away. Celeste looked at him. I do not need a man to save me, but I will not punish loyalty, because betrayal taught me fear. Stay through the investigation. After that, we discuss boundaries. Callum nodded. Yes, Celeste. They left Aurelian Hall together, not as lovers, not yet, but as two people walking away from a battlefield with the fire contained and the morning already waiting. Celeste returned to Ravensmere just after sunrise. The lawn was empty. The altar had been dismantled. Only a few crushed white petals remained in the wet grass where Ronan had smiled for cameras and Isla had pretended the house was already hers. Celeste walked to the edge of the lake. The water was still. Behind her, Ravensmere stood quiet again. No ceremony, no borrowed name, no false beginning. For the first time in days, Celeste breathed without preparing for impact. That night, Celeste Wrenford did not just take back her house. She took back her name, her vote, and the silence Ronan had mistaken for weakness.